Talk, and it's going to be led by Dr. GLEICHSNER and her Agriculture 620 class. This is going to be a great presentation. I hope you all enjoy it very much.
I'd like to welcome everybody to Times Talk. As Vivian mentioned, my name is Dr. Jean GLEICHSNER. I teach in the Ag Department, and this is a course called Agri 620 Certified Canola Crops. And I charge the students with looking at the issues of hunger at different levels, for example, facing youth, seniors, and then what agriculture is doing to address the hunger issue. And all the students participated in the Swipe Out event this Saturday. So you were there. That was a great event. If not, you missed a great time, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities in the future. So I'm asking the students to come up as 3 separate groups. And so the first group is going to talk a little bit about hunger issues that are that youth face. So with that, I'll turn it over to the first group. And they'll be introducing themselves as they come up.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about youth hunger. I'm Matt Crowdinger, this is Cy Schmidt, this is Joe Aker. Did you know that there are enough food insecure youths in Kansas to fill the Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan? Food insecurity is defined as households that are uncertain of having or unable to acquire enough food to meet basic needs of all their members because of insufficient money or other resources. And if a child does not get enough food outside of the school, he or she is considered food insecure. I'll be talking about the worldwide hunger effect with the youth. Here's a pie chart showing which regions suffer the most from hunger. As you can see, Asia and the Pacific region suffer the most. Africa is significantly coming in second, and then Latin America and Caribbean combined are third, and then the developed countries suffer the least. Asia struggles the most with hunger, with 525.6 million people suffering. In sub-Saharan Africa, 214 million people suffer. 1/3 of all the childhood deaths in sub-Saharan Africa is from hunger. Latin America and the Caribbean also suffer. They suffer with 47 million people. And out of all the numbers, 50% are all from the youth. "45% of the deaths of children under 5 are from poor nutrition. 3.1 million children die from hunger each year, which means that 8,500 children die every day. With 66 million kids going to school hungry throughout developing countries, you can be assured that their attention and focus is not going towards their education, but rather towards their next meal. Over 2 million children die every day from dehydration caused by diarrhea. A child with poor nutrition rarely has enough strength or a strong enough immune system to survive a severe case of diarrhea. A child with poor nutrition has a weaker immune system, making it easier for them to become infected. And infections that cause a decrease of appetite can decrease the child's ability to combat the infection and lead to death. The World Food Program allows the poor and weak to stop worrying about their next meal by providing meal programs. They provide school meals for children so they can focus more on their education rather than their next meal. They also provide a program called Food for Assets. This project allows the hungry to work for food so they can have the nutrients and energy to work so they can make a better future for themselves and their community. then there is the program called Action Against Hunger. It has 5,000 workers in over 40 different countries, providing the poor and hungry people with proper nutrition, clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and food security. From here, I'll turn it over to Simon.
Matt kind of talked about the global hunger deal. I'm just gonna narrow it into the United States, focus on our country a little more. 1 out of every 5 kids in the U.S. doesn't have a consistent amount of food. Not necessarily, I don't think they're starving. They're probably not in the shape as some kids in other countries, but still going day to day. They aren't getting what they needed, and that's never a good thing. 21 million low-income children rely on food from schools, other people, handouts, more or less. Them or their parents can't provide them what they need. Here's some facts. They're pretty obvious. If you don't get enough food, you're not going to be feeling very well. Children who struggle with the hunger are likely to be more sick more often, to recover from illness more slowly, to be hospitalized more frequently. Also, the children who struggle with hunger are more susceptible to obesity and harmful health consequences. In the U.S., some of the main programs trying to help out with this hunger problems, SNAP, that's the big one. It's was known as the food stamps. I'm sure you've all heard of that. They provide assistance to those in need. You fill out an application, you send it in, you tell them your story, and they are pretty good with trying to help you out and giving you some food that kind of a necessity to live. So, and the last thing, if you want to help individually, I mean, obviously, no one's Bill Gates or Donald Trump, but little donations and charities go a long ways. And if you can't do that, you can always volunteer. Like last Saturday, we had a food drive here, packaged up some food and sent it off. And lastly is advocate, do like we're doing here, just spread the word a little, helps out. And last one, don't be wasteful. That's really super small, but you go to the grocery store and get some food you don't like or something, instead of just throwing it away, go downtown and go to a food drive or something and drop it off. Just something like that, be helpful. And I think that's it for me. Yeah, you can go to Joe Aker here.
So they talked a little bit about the world health or world hunger aspects, and then the U.S. hunger. I'm going to talk a little more about Kansas and Ellis County specifically. In Kansas, this is 2012 data, so it's probably gone up since then. But there was 162,400, or 22.5% of children that were food insecure, and that is 38% of the total food insecure population in Kansas. 68% of those were income eligible for nutrition programs, but 32%, that's 51,968 kids, were not income eligible for nutrition programs. That's enough to fill Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. This is just a map of Kansas where the darker green areas, like that county there, have more hunger problems than Ellis County. Youth hunger in Ellis County, there is 1,090 youths that are food insecure. That's 18.4% of the population. That doesn't take into account FHSU students, since we are not lifelong residents here. 62% of those are income eligible for nutrition programs. The remaining 38%, 414 kids, are not income eligible for nutrition programs, so they rely on donations and things like that they wouldn't get, like food stamps for. And this is just a little pie charts about the aspects of that. So how does this impact Kansas and Ellis County? It makes more people more reliant on taxpayers' dollars. That's less money going to roads and education and Medicaid and different government programs. It does that because you have to pay for the health problems that occurs with them, and also the more money going to food stamps and food programs. This leads to lower performance and growth and development and education because they don't get the nutrients that they need, they don't focus in class, and that leads to medical problems and less money for schools because schools get their money based on your performance level that your students are reaching. So that leads to a more undereducated populace and more taxes on the people. There's a juvenile detention facility in Shawnee County, Kansas, that they did a study where they gave the kids double the size of portions that they got, and also a fresh fruit snack instead of a sugary snack towards the end of the day. And classroom performance increased, behavior was better, and there was less violence. And that was only in 2 weeks that they did the study. So the goal of the study was to increase positive attributes of life, to make the kids more reachable so they wouldn't turn to a life of crime. But inadvertently they found out that if you fill their stomachs, they're happier and more reachable. So that was an interesting study that they did, and that was just in 2 weeks. What can you do? You can raise awareness, use food drives, use them in your campus events, your different campus groups that you're involved in. Get involved with assistance programs. I know we have a food bank on campus here. We also have the Kansas Food Bank, Food for Kids, local food drives and food banks that you can get involved with and your groups can get involved with to help make a difference. And just to sum it up, youth hunger is definitely prevalent in the world, in the United States and in Kansas and even in Ellis County. And like the pain in the children's stomachs, it's not going to go away easily. So there's 3 things you can do. You can make more people aware of the problem. You can educate them on what they can do and how it affects people, and then you can take action to help solve it.
Okay, I'm Abby Rudd, this is Eric Ellis and Lindsay Underwood, and we're going to focus more on the senior side of it. Did you know 7 million elderly people are served by Feeding America each year? Over 40% disabled seniors are faced with the threat of hunger in the year 2012. So we're going to kind of break down some key groups that are helping fight issues with dealing with hunger. So what is food insecurity? It's the state of being without reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. Healthy food isn't exactly cheap anymore, so that's becoming, more of a problem. People are just, going for the cheap food and not getting the nutrients that they need. It's becoming a really huge problem among seniors. It increases their disability, and they're more liable to get sick. That's going to, hospital stays may be longer. We found this chart here, kind of gives you an idea of the ages. Age 60 to 64, it's roughly just over 39% of seniors that are food insecure. And then you can see the lowest percentage there is the age band 75 to 80, just to give you an idea on that. So some of the programs are the Senior Farmers Market Nutritionist Program, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, the Meals on Wheels, Bob's Boxes, and then the National Foundation to End Senior Hunger. I'm going to go ahead and touch upon the first couple, and then Lindsay will go ahead and talk about the rest. So the Seniors Farmers Market Nutritious Program awards grants to states, U.S. territories, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments to provide low-income seniors with coupons that can be exchanged for eligible foods. It's like fruit, vegetables, honey, typical foods that you would find, at your farmers markets. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program, it serves roughly just over 590,000 low-income people every year. And then it's only USDA program targeting low-income seniors. Requirements are both age and income. You have to be 60 and older to qualify for this, with incomes less than 130% of the federal poverty guideline. The guidelines are based on household size. It starts at 100% and goes up to 400%. So the higher the percentage, the more money a household is going to get. So just to give you a rough estimate on that, at 100%, just having one person in the household, they're roughly going to have $11,000 that they'll get. Compared to the 400%, well, they'll mainly be closer to $46,000. So that just gives you an idea about those guidelines.
Meals on Wheels offers frozen home-delivered meals for elderly people who are unable to leave their home to shop or prepare nutritious meals. The meals are prepared with the required dietary needs of seniors, and the meals are packaged so that they can be placed in either the microwave or the oven. And here's a video to explain it a little bit.
Could you imagine being put on a waiting list for receiving meals when you don't have any food in the house? That would be like us not being able to go to the grocery store when our cupboards were empty.
Meals on Wheels is a great program.
The greatest challenge is having enough money to operate the program at full capacity. Last year we delivered almost 440,000 meals. We currently deliver 2 meals a day to our clients. Not only does it provide basic necessity, which is food for them, it also provides them with the human contact that they so need when they're so isolated.
You end up working up a rapport with these people where they become your friends, they rely on you to come, they're happy to see you. And it's kind of sad to say, but if we didn't do that, I don't know what would happen to a lot of these people.
Came to see about me, and I like that.
This is a crucial year for the Meals on Wheels program. We are currently serving every client up to 2 meals per day, but we are faced with the possibility of having to cut our program down to 1 meal a day and starting a waiting list. And we don't want to do that. We don't think anyone should have to have 1 meal a day. I think Meals on Wheels truly saves lives.
Bob's Boxes is targeted towards senior hunger. The program helps seniors who often face difficult choices between paying medical and utility bills or buying food. Volunteers meet at certain locations throughout the state and package boxes. They have a 5-year rollout planned, starting with the more rural western counties because there's less infrastructure. And the Kansas Food Bank distributed more than 11 million pounds of food with the help of 500 hunger relief partners in 85 counties to serve nearly 137,300 different Kansans. And Eric's going to talk about the National Foundation to End Senior Hunger.
The National Foundation to End Senior Hunger is a organization that puts on or helps fund research for senior hunger. One of the surveys that's distributed to most seniors in America, I don't know if all of them, is the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. The NHANES is a survey that is distributed and asked what meals and how often seniors are eating, and if they have any grandkids living with them. Basic things like race, sex, age. And also it's unique in that the participant has to take a physical exam as well so you can gauge their activities of daily limitations. These are the results. There's another slide with results as well. This particular research and the other one was done by Dr. James Ziliak of the University of Kentucky for Center for Poverty Research. If you do any research on, or any Googling on senior hunger, you'll probably find his name attached to most research. And on this particular one, Dr. Craig Gunnarsson, associated with the University of Illinois, was part of it. But as you can see here, seniors that are suffering from hunger or other food insecurities are 50% more likely to be diabetic. They are twice as likely to report fair to poor general health, and that has something to do with activities of daily living limitations and just being able to wake up in the mornings. Depression, 3 times more likely to be depressed. Activities of daily living, I've said that 3 times now, is a like just the regular things like driving a car, turning the TV on, taking a shower, cooking your own meals, stuff like that. So if they're not, doing simple tasks like that, that it's downhill spiral from there. And then 14% more likely to have high blood pressure, and 60% more likely to have congenital heart failure. And most of this research is they're trying to weed out the participants that haven't had maybe issues prior to their senior age. Here's a little graph to kind of set me up for my next slide. It sets up the where seniors stand as far as the poverty line. As you can see here, below just the regular poverty line, 31.9%, but between 100 and 200% of the federal poverty line, 33%. Above, almost 17%, and 18% of seniors didn't report, which is a big problem among seniors because they're proud. They've raised kids, and their kids are raising grandkids. They don't feel like they're suffering from hunger. They don't understand that maybe they are, not getting what they need. These are the seniors that are most at risk. A young senior between the age of 60 and 64. And this research was done by the Meals on Wheels Association of America. Between the ages of 60 and 64, they're more likely. If you're 80 and older, you are 2.1% less likely. If you're living at or below the poverty line, you are 15% more likely. A high school dropout is 20% more likely than a high school graduate. An African American senior is 4.2% more likely to suffer from food hunger, and Hispanics are 20% more likely. If you are married, you have a 20% less likely chance to suffer from food insecurity, and if you have a grandchild living with them, you are 50% more likely, because the seniors are going to make sure their grandkids are taken care of before they take care of themselves. And that's, like I said, is an issue with senior hunger, big issue. And homeowners compared to renters are 50% less likely to be food insecure. There are several consequences that come with hunger. Seniors that are experiencing some sort of food insecurity are. This study is attached to the last one, and they took this NHA-NDS survey, and of the 5 million seniors they've selected from, 11.4% experience food insecurity. 2.5 million of those, so 50%, suffer from hunger. But they're significantly more likely to have lower intakes of energy and more major vitamins. They intake 10 to 20% lower than needed. And they are not getting 11 nutrients that an average person takes in because of these seniors of the 10 to 20% group. They're more likely to be in poor fair health. And then, like I said, the activities of daily living, they're going to experience some loss there. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay.
The future of senior hunger According to several studies, hunger is going to be is going to increase in the future. Prices are constantly changing and increasing, especially in the foods that are healthy for us. In 2025, an estimated 9.5 million senior Americans will experience some form of food insecurity, about 75% higher than in 2005. In 2025, an estimated 3.9 million senior Americans will be at risk of hunger, and in 2025, an estimated 1 million senior Americans will suffer from hunger. And then obviously we'll talk about reducing senior hunger.
So how do we help reduce senior hunger? Go ahead and get involved with organizations in your community. It'll be very beneficial. Donate to your local food banks. Like Joe said, we have one here on campus that you can bring food to help donate. Just get yourself involved, like with the Bob boxes or the food packaging that we just did here on this past weekend, and then just be willing to help at any time. So I mean, if you know someone that's suffering from hunger, get yourself involved, donate food, and then Lindsay will wrap it up.
In summary, there are several food assistance programs that can help fight senior hunger. The health issues with seniors are more of a concern for their age. And then Bob's Boxes is an organization that's a good way to get involved. It's increasing each year, and it gets people together to help package food for the elderly.
My name is Jared Raymond. This is Drew Ameren, Lucas Robinson, and Peyton Fleming, and we're going to talk to you about how ag is addressing hunger today. No single ag technology or farming practice will provide enough food for the world in 2050. Instead, it will require a broad utilization of lower, simpler technology with high technology to maximize use. like to talk to you about the cultural practices that farmers are doing today to produce more. First off is no-till farming. It's becoming more and more popular. In 1988, only 5% of United States farm ground was considered no-till, and by 2009, that number had increased to 35%, and it's expected to continue to increase as well. Benefits are a minimal soil disturbance. So you can tell by the picture, you got no-till on the right and tillage on the left. The only time that you disturb the soil is when you plant the crop, and that leaves a lot of crop residue out there, so it shades the soil, increases your moisture content in your soil for the crop to utilize next year. The residue itself will hold moisture, and then it'll decompose in the soil, provide more nutrients, and that'll all combine to increase yields in your fields. One farmer in GLEICHSNER, Kansas, said he had a 50% yield increase in his wheat when he compared tillage to no-till. The only drawback is that it takes time to get that yield bump. A lot of guys say 4 to 5 years until your soil profile is fully restored. Another one farmers doing is variable rate seeding fertilizer. This is very common practice when you have a lot of variability of soil types or elevation in your fields. Higher elevation or hillsides aren't going to be as good of soil structure or well suited for growing conditions, so you might put less seed and less fertilizer up there. And of course on your lower grounds, or if you're next to a river where it's really good soil, you're probably going to bump your populations and fertilizer up so you can increase more on your superior grounds. And then another one is your split fertilizer application. By definition, it's dividing your nutrient and nitrogen application into 2 or more treatments. Easiest way to do this, you can do soil tissue testing, and that's just testing the nutrient levels within your plants and within your soils. It'll allow you to see where you're deficient or where you're sufficient throughout the growing season. With the different application timing, you can put different nutrients and concentrations. So earlier in the season, if you're deficient in one, you might not be deficient later on in the year, and vice versa. And then your enhanced nitrogen efficiency. Nitrogen is needed throughout the season for a growing crop. Splitting it up, it'll basically feed it throughout the growing year. To relate, you don't eat one big meal for each week. You eat 3 meals a day, get you throughout the week. And then that, I'll turn it over to Drew.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about biotechnology and what we can do to improve the actual plant itself to increase the yield. And so it is pretty obvious that starvation is a huge problem throughout our world. It's estimated 800 million people are suffering from malnutrition today. And then in Africa, there's an infant mortality rate of 9.2%, all due to this. With the rapidly growing population throughout our world, here within the next 36 years, farmers are going to have to double their average yields on their farms to feed everybody. So the question is, how are we going to do this? And that's by using biotechnology. And so basically what this is we're taking a couple different plants and adding or taking away genes to get a beneficial trait to a certain crop. And this has the potential to have a huge impact on reducing our world hunger. So by using this biotechnology, it'll allow for more crops to be grown on less land, and especially over in the poor countries where the farmers are growing crops for their family to survive on. By having crops that have better yields, they might actually be able to sell some crops and have a little bit of income for their families. This is a chart that shows these green areas are the areas where biotech crops are being grown, and all throughout the United States and most of South America, you can see they're all being grown. And then a record of 14 million farmers in the 25 countries. They planted 330 million acres in 2009, which is an increase of 7% from 2008. And this is a couple years old, so as you can imagine, it's grown greatly since then. So with the nutrition, or with modified crops, it also has a great impact on the nutrition of the food itself. GMO foods kind of have a bad reputation with our population, but these foods are higher in quality due to their abilities to last longer. They can withstand greater time periods sitting on the shelf in a grocery store, which is very beneficial. And then they are also resistant to some insects and diseases, as well as being herbicide tolerant. And people that are eating this, there's a big old hype about organic foods, but this type of food with the chemicals on there is safer than these organically grown foods, because they can be attacked by the insects and viruses. Some of the difficulties that this faces, there are environmentalists that are against biotechnology, that are making it difficult for us to keep improving upon this, and while this is happening, it's depriving many people from food, causing suffering. There's this deal called a yield gap, and basically what this is that in the U.S., the average corn yields on our farmland is 160 bushels per acre, but there are some other farms that are growing 300 bushel corn. And so if we can reduce this gap, not necessarily decrease the farmers that are growing 300 bushel corn, but increase the smaller farms that are only growing 160, there's great potential there. I'm going to turn it over to Lucas.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how farmers are utilizing water to irrigate their crops and raise better yields. Farmers in the past have used really inefficient methods like gravity flow, which is just you lay pipe on the end of a field and it runs water down a row. That's really not very efficient at all, but at the time they thought it was a pretty good way to raise better yields. So in today's technology, they've come up with what we call a center pivot, which is what you're seeing right here. These go around in a circle and apply water to crops, and they're relatively efficient. Well, with the ability to have all the technology that we have today, we actually are taking it to the next step, and we're using what we call variable rate irrigation. What this does is all these nozzles on this pivot are able to turn on and off independently. So let's say there's a ditch running through a field that doesn't need to be watered because there's no crop growing there. We can shut nozzles off and save water and just put the water where the crops are growing. By being able to do this, we're using our water better, and we're going to be able to increase our yields, which in the end is going to make more grains for food consumption. Next thing I'll talk about is storage and distribution problems. In foreign countries, they have a terrible problem. Obviously, you can see this is how they're storing their grains. That's not a very safe place to store grains. Rodents, insects, just about anything can get into that and ruin your grains. And this is how they're having to haul it there. So obviously it's not very efficient, and their grain quality that they eat is not very good, if it's even okay to eat. So even though we can grow, they might even be able to grow enough food to feed everyone there. But if it gets ruined, then they don't have that option. Unlike here in the United States, obviously we're growing better yields and everything, but we also have semis to get it to places across the United States where it's needed, and we can store it for a much longer time because our facilities are just so much better, and we can store it for way longer and get it to places where it's actually needed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Peyton.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the ag programs that are leading into and are funded by the USDA. They've all kind of talked about some of them helping elderly and the children, but ag and the USDA are mainly for education, for to grow, to produce, and to feed America. Number one organization is Feeding America, and they provide more than 46 million people, and they have over 60,000 food pantries nationwide. They are also supported through Red Cross and Blue Shield, and that's where you hear most of them come through. But they break down into two specific groups. They have the network programs and then the public assistant programs. You see your network programs are the mobile pantry. The mobile pantry program is, they basically have 200 food banks that are extremely huge, and this has allowed them to go through and travel and supply food banks more steadily to have fresher produce. And then there's the SNAP outreach program. We've known SNAP to be the food stamps program. It is actually outreach now to serve the elderly and not just the low income families that we think it serves. Then the National Produce Program. This program was built just for the fact to have fresh produce in every food bank. So it's kind of teamed up now with the mobile pantry program. And then disaster relief. This actually supports 61,000 local agencies, and it's also through the Red Cross and Blue Shield and Salvation Army now. Then for your public assistant programs, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program was designed to meet unique nutritional needs of participants, supplementing a diet with diets with monthly packages. And then the Emergency Food Assistance Program is actually just for the United States, and it's for, like they had hurricanes or anything that happens that we need food fast, and there's people in need. That comes in. The newest one would be the Summer Assistance Program, and that is for the children that are, in school, and the only meal they were getting was while they were at school. And so now the USDA took in consideration that these kids need foods during long-term breaks, such as Christmas breaks, and during the summer. So they actually started a program to fund food to those children during that time. And then the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, like I said, it's the SNAP or food stamps, and it was actually changed from food stamps to the SNAP program in 2008. And then this one was a new and upcoming one. It's Ag Against Hunger, and it actually started as a small local community in California, and they basically just had 4 programs, and it's not actually branched out and become nationwide. And their main concern was to produce more for their schools in that location and to have fresh produce. And then they were like, well, if they need it during school, we also need it during the winter. And so when they are not in season, they have trucks come in that are delivering fresh produce to the schools and around the community, so there is fresh produce. And then produce sharing, which it all just kind of ties into itself. They actually load trucks and send it out and make it to where everything's fresh. And then they realized that after harvest and everything was going on in the volunteer gleaning program, that there was still food and valuable resources left out in the field, so they asked for volunteers and anybody that would be willing to help to go and help harvest the rest of the food. So they decided to add that in. And as our summary, some of the obstacles farmers face, whether it be trade, politics, infrastructure, or weather, are largely out of our control. But when it comes to what happens in the field, technology will drive yields higher to help fill the plates of about 9 billion people. And education and getting us out and us talking is what's going to help the most with Feeding America. And if you're interested in getting involved with Feeding America or in Ag Against Hunger, you can go online and volunteer or donate.
We'll open the floor up for any questions or comments we have from our audience. Covered a lot of things today. Have any questions? Yes.
Just kind of really specific, but I think it was Joe who was talking about physical exam for seniors to qualify for one of the programs that was talked about, and it was kind of vaguely mentioned that there's a physical exam to show, like, is there a difference between, like, is this a nutrition-related health problem, or is it just a natural decline in, like, function due to age?
So I think it was Eric.
No, that was just a survey. The National Foundation to End Senior Hunger and a couple other groups get together and they put together this survey. It's just basically what you expect out of it, as, like I said, age, sex, race, income, what they've done their careers, and then anyone can send out a survey like that. They also ask, they send out a physical form to give to go take to the doctor, and they get a physical, and they send that in with their submission. And then it's not for any qualifying, it's survey. I don't even know if there is any names on it. I think it's just a survey that these seniors choose to send in. They're not forced to do it.
Okay.
So it's not for qualifying or anything else.
Thank you. Any other questions? Brittany?
Meals on Wheels, are all of those meals free, or do some elderly use it and pay for that?
Some do have to pay for it. It's not all free. I mean, they have to pay for the meals, certain meals, especially if they're getting them twice a day, because some only choose to get it once a day. So
is that income based?
Yeah, it's based off how much they make, or each year, yearly.
Any questions? Well, I would like to thank you for coming, and as I indicated, this is an issue that needs to be discussed, and hopefully Fort Hays is doing, I think, a good job of addressing certain hunger issues on campus. And so they refer to the food pantry. If you're not familiar, it's just over there, and the library has generously donated the space, and we have individuals involved on campus. We have Food and Hunger Club? What is it called, Sheila?
Well, there's the Campus Food and Hunger Initiatives, and there's a Food and Garden Club.
Right. So if you're interested, contact us, and we can get you involved. But there's great opportunities to make a difference in some of